It was a cold, rainy afternoon in Seattle when Hollywood star Keanu Reeves made a split-second decision that would change multiple lives forever. The actor had just finished scouting locations for his upcoming film when he heard desperate cries coming from the churning waters below the Fremont Bridge. What began as a routine day transformed into a heart-stopping rescue that revealed the true character of a man the world thought they knew, and uncovered a story of tragedy, hope, and redemption that no one could have imagined. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing your comments from around the world. The rain had been falling steadily for days, turning Seattle's normally picturesque waterways into dangerous, swollen torrents. Dark clouds hung low over the city skyline, and most people hurried through the streets with their heads down, eager to escape the relentless downpour. But Keanu Reeves wasn't most people. At 58, the beloved actor had maintained the same humble approach to life that had endeared him to millions of fans worldwide. Despite starring in blockbuster franchises like The Matrix and John Wick, Keanu was known for his down-to-earth nature, riding the subway, giving up his seat for strangers, and quietly donating millions to children's hospitals without seeking recognition. On this particular Wednesday, Keanu had been walking along the Fremont Bridge, taking photos with his phone of the industrial landscapes for a new indie film he was passionate about. He wore a simple black raincoat, his long hair tied back, blending in with the few pedestrians braving the weather. To most passers-by, he was just another face in the crowd, exactly how he preferred it. Melissa Chen, a 24-year-old barista at a nearby coffee shop, was also crossing the bridge, hurrying to make her evening shift on time. She noticed the tall figure pausing to take photos, but didn't immediately recognize him. "I was running late and completely stressed out," Melissa would later recall. "I barely noticed anyone else on the bridge until I heard him shouting." What Keanu had heard, what had made him suddenly drop his phone and rush to the bridge railing, was the distinct sound of an animal in distress. Peering over the edge through the curtain of rain, he spotted something small and orange being swept along by the current, desperately trying to keep its head above the churning water. A kitten, no more than a few months old, was fighting for its life in the swollen canal. "Help!" Keanu called out, looking around frantically for bridge security or emergency services. But the weather had driven most people indoors, and those few still outside were hurrying past with umbrellas shielding their vision. Without hesitation, Keanu began stripping off his raincoat and shoes. Melissa, who had stopped at his shout, rushed to the railing. "What are you doing?" she asked, alarmed by the sight of a man preparing to jump into the dangerous waters below. "There's a kitten drowning," Keanu answered simply, his voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "Call 911. Before Melissa could respond, Keanu had climbed over the safety railing. For one heart-stopping moment, he hung suspended above the churning water, the height suddenly seeming much greater than it had from behind the barrier. Then, taking a deep breath, he plunged into the cold, murky canal. The shock of the icy water nearly took his breath away. The current was stronger than he'd anticipated, immediately pulling at his clothes and threatening to drag him under. For several terrifying seconds, he lost sight of the kitten entirely as he fought to stabilize himself in the surging water. Above on the bridge, Melissa had dialed emergency services, her hands shaking as she reported what was happening. A small crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion and the unusual sight of a man in the water. "Oh my God, that's Keanu Reeves!" someone shouted, recognition dawning as the actor surfaced, hair plastered to his face as he scanned the water for the struggling kitten. 20 yards downstream, Keanu spotted a flash of orange fur. The kitten was weakening, its tiny head barely visible above the water now. With powerful strokes, Keanu swam toward it, fighting against the current that threatened to sweep them both toward the bay. Just as the kitten was about to go under for what would surely have been the last time, Keanu's hand closed gently around its tiny body. He lifted the soaked ball of fur to his shoulder, where the kitten instinctively dug its claws into his sweater, clinging to its rescuer with the last of its strength. But their ordeal was far from over. The rescue had carried them farther from the bridge, and the current was only growing stronger. Keanu tried to swim toward the concrete embankment, but found himself being pulled away from shore. The weight of his waterlogged clothes and the energy expended in reaching the kitten had sapped his strength more quickly than he'd expected. For a moment, genuine fear flashed across his face, not for himself, but for the tiny life shivering against his neck. Then, determination set his features as he changed tactics, focusing on simply staying afloat until help could arrive rather than fighting the overwhelming current. On shore, the crowd had grown larger as word spread rapidly through social media. "Keanu Reeves jumped off Fremont Bridge to save a kitten," the messages read, drawing curious onlookers and media to the scene. Fire trucks and emergency vehicles arrived with sirens blaring, their lights cutting through the gray afternoon. After what seemed like an eternity, but was actually about 7 minutes, a rescue boat reached Keanu and the kitten. Gentle hands helped them aboard, immediately wrapping the actor in emergency blankets while a paramedic carefully examined the tiny feline. "Is it going to be okay?" were Keanu's first words, his teeth chattering from the cold, but his concern entirely for the animal he'd risked his life to save. The paramedic, momentarily starstruck despite her professional training, nodded. "Thanks to you, I think this little fighter has a chance." As they approached the shore, a cheer went up from the gathered crowd. Cameras flashed and phones recorded as Keanu Reeves, soaking wet and wrapped in silver emergency blankets, was helped onto solid ground, the tiny orange kitten still cradled protectively against his chest. Someone brought an additional towel specifically for the kitten, and Keanu gently dried the trembling animal, speaking softly to it as reporters shouted questions and cameras continued to flash around them. "Mr. Reeves, why did you risk your life for a stray cat?" Keanu looked up, seeming genuinely confused by the question. "Because it needed help," he answered simply, as if no other explanation was necessary. Little did anyone know that this rain-soaked rescue was just the beginning of a story that would touch hearts across the world and reveal connections no one could have imagined. After refusing hospital treatment for himself but insisting on immediate veterinary care for the kitten, Keanu accompanied the small feline to the nearest animal hospital. The media followed, but most respected his request to give them space as he carried the towel-wrapped kitten through the doors of Seattle Animal Medical Center. Dr. Sarah Williams, the veterinarian on duty, immediately took charge of the situation, guiding Keanu to an examination room away from prying eyes, while her staff managed the growing crowd of reporters in the waiting area. "He's suffering from hypothermia and exhaustion," Dr. Williams explained after examining the kitten, "and he's malnourished, probably a stray for some time. But cats are resilient. With proper care, he should recover fully." Keanu nodded, relief evident on his face. "I'd like to cover all expenses for his treatment," he said quietly. "And," he hesitated, "I'd like to know when he's well enough to be adopted." Dr. Williams smiled. "Are you considering giving him a home yourself?" Before Keanu could answer, a commotion in the waiting area caught their attention. A small voice was rising above the general murmur, insistent and increasingly distressed. "Please, that's my kitten. Please let me see if it's him." Exchanging puzzled looks, Keanu and Dr. Williams stepped into the hallway to find a tiny figure trying to push through the crowd of reporters and curious onlookers. A girl, no more than 8 years old, was being held back gently by the receptionist, while a harried-looking woman, presumably her mother, tried to explain their presence. "Ember! His name is Ember!" the child was calling out, tears streaming down her face. "He's orange with white paws and a white spot on his nose." Keanu looked down at the kitten in his arms, noting for the first time the distinctive white markings on its paws and the small white patch on its nose. Without hesitation, he walked toward the child, the crowd parting before him. Kneeling down to the girl's eye level, he gently turned the towel-wrapped kitten so she could see its face. "Is this Ember?" he asked softly. The child's eyes widened, first with recognition of her pet, then with the slow realization of who was holding him. "Ember!" she gasped, reaching out tentative hands. Then, with a shy glance up at Keanu's face, You're John Wick." Despite the tension of the moment, Keanu couldn't help but smile. "I play him in movies," he corrected gently. "But right now I'm just someone who found your cat. May I ask your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered, her eyes never leaving the kitten as Keanu carefully transferred the small bundle into her waiting arms. "Lily Martinez." The woman beside her stepped forward, emotional as she watched her daughter reunite with the pet they had thought lost forever. "I'm Elena Martinez, Lily's mother," she introduced herself, offering her hand to Keanu. "I can't believe we've been searching for Ember for 2 weeks. He disappeared during a storm, and Lily has been heartbroken. We put up posters everywhere." As they moved to a quieter area of the waiting room, the full story emerged. Elena was a single mother working 2 jobs to support herself and Lily. They lived in a small apartment near the canal, where Ember had been Lily's constant companion since she had found him abandoned behind their building 6 months earlier. "He helps me not be scared," Lily explained earnestly to Keanu, who listened with complete attention. "I have bad dreams sometimes since Daddy went to heaven, but Ember sleeps on my pillow and keeps the bad dreams away." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears as she explained in a lower voice that her husband, a firefighter, had died in the line of duty the previous year. Lily had struggled with anxiety and nightmares until finding and bonding with the stray kitten. "When he disappeared, it was like losing a piece of our family all over again," Elena said. "Lily hasn't slept through the night since he's been gone." Dr. Williams, who had been examining Ember more thoroughly while they talked, rejoined the group. "He's going to need to stay overnight for observation and treatment," she explained. "But you can pick him up tomorrow if all goes well." Seeing Lily's crestfallen expression at being separated from her just-found pet, Keanu stepped in. "Dr. Williams, would it be possible for Lily to stay with Ember for a while now? It might help them both recover from their ordeal." The veterinarian considered this, then nodded. "I don't see why not. We have a recovery room where they can have some quiet time together." As Dr. Williams led Lily and Ember away, Elena turned to Keanu, gratitude and something like embarrassment warring on her face. "Mr. Reeves, I don't know how to thank you enough. Ember means the world to Lily and I—" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "I should warn you that I don't think we can afford extensive veterinary care. I was laid off from my second job last month, and things have been tight." Keanu shook his head firmly. "Please don't worry about that. Everything is taken care of." "But I can't accept," Eleanor began. "Consider it Ember's way of thanking you and Lily for giving him a home," Keanu interrupted gently. "Sometimes we save each other, don't we?" The next morning, as promised, Ember was ready to go home. Keanu, having changed into dry clothes brought by his assistant and successfully dodged most of the media, arrived at the veterinary clinic just as Elena and Lily were completing the discharge paperwork. Mr. Reeves insisted on covering all expenses and has also set up an account for Ember's future veterinary needs, the receptionist was explaining to an overwhelmed Elena as Keanu entered. Lily, sitting nearby with Ember safely in a new carrier, spotted him first. She rushed over, the carrier swinging precariously, until Keanu steadied it with gentle hands. "Ember wanted to say thank you for saving him," Lily announced solemnly, "and I wanted to give you this." She thrust a slightly crumpled piece of paper into his hands. Keanu unfolded it to find a crayon drawing of himself swimming in blue water with an orange cat. "To John Wick" was written across the top in careful, childish letters. "Thank you for saving Ember" was at the bottom, followed by a row of hearts. "This is beautiful, Lily," Keanu said, genuine emotion making his voice slightly rough. "I'm going to keep it always." Eleanor joined them, still looking slightly dazed by the turn of events. "Mr. Reeves, I don't know how we can ever repay your kindness." Actually, Keanu said, suddenly looking a bit shy himself. "I was hoping I might ask a favor of you both." Eleanor and Lily looked at him quizzically. "The film I'm in Seattle to make. It's about a man who learns to reconnect with the world after experiencing great loss. There's a scene where the character meets a child and her pet who help him remember what matters in life." He paused, watching their expressions carefully. "The director has been struggling to cast those roles authentically. When I saw you with Ember, I couldn't help thinking, would you consider letting us talk to you about possibly being in the film? Just for that one scene." The shock on Elena's face was almost comical. "Us? In your movie?" "It would be a paid position, of course," Keanu added quickly. "For both of you. And Ember too." "Can Ember be a movie star?" Lily asked, eyes wide with wonder. Keanu laughed, the sound surprisingly boyish from the usually reserved actor. "I think he already is. Have you seen social media today?" Indeed, overnight, the video of Keanu's rescue had gone viral, with Keanu's Kitten trending worldwide. The footage of him diving into the dangerous water had been viewed millions of times, and the heartwarming reunion with Lily had only added to the story's appeal. What no one knew yet, what would only emerge in the days that followed, was how deeply the incident had affected Keanu himself. In a rare interview given to support the film when it was released 18 months later, Keanu would reveal that the day of the rescue had been the anniversary of a personal tragedy. The day his own beloved dog had passed away years earlier. "I'd been feeling particularly low that morning," he admitted quietly to the interviewer. "Memories sometimes hit harder on anniversaries. I was walking in the rain thinking about loss when I heard that kitten crying. It felt significant somehow, like I was meant to be there." The movie, when it was finally released, would receive critical acclaim, with particular praise for the natural performances of Elena and Lily Martinez, and of course Ember the cat, who played himself with scene-stealing charisma. But the most meaningful outcome wasn't visible to the public eye. With Keanu's encouragement and financial backing, Elena returned to school to complete her nursing degree, a dream she had abandoned after her husband's death. Lily's anxiety continued to improve, boosted by the confidence gained from her unexpected film experience. And Keanu himself found an unexpected friendship with the Martinez family, making time to visit whenever he was in Seattle. For a man often characterized by the media as lonely despite his fame, these quiet connections became a source of genuine joy. 6 months after the rescue, Keanu received a package at his home. Inside was a small framed photo of Lily and Ember, both looking healthy and happy. Attached was a note in Eleanor's handwriting. "Some people save cats. Some cats save people. Thank you for being the kind of person who doesn't look away when someone small needs help. You've changed more than just Ember's life. Eleanor and Lily." Keanu placed the frame on his bookshelf, in a spot where the morning light would catch it each day, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, the opportunity to help another being can arrive unexpectedly, bringing healing we never anticipated. 3 years later, at the premiere of his next big action film, a reporter asked Keanu what had been his most challenging stunt to date. The audience expected him to name some death-defying motorcycle sequence or elaborate fight scene. Instead, Keanu smiled thoughtfully and answered, "Probably jumping off a bridge in Seattle to save a kitten named Ember. The physical part wasn't the hardest. It was deciding in that split second that I couldn't stand by and watch a life be lost, even if it meant risking my own." The reporter, caught off guard by the unexpectedly philosophical answer, pressed further. "Would you make the same choice again, knowing the dangers?" Keanu looked directly into the camera, his expression earnest and unguarded in a way rarely seen on red carpets. "Every time," he said simply, "because in helping others, we often end up saving ourselves." Back in Seattle, in a small but cozy apartment near the waterfront, Lily Martinez, now 11 years old, watched the interview on TV with Ember purring contentedly in her lap. The once tiny kitten had grown into a handsome cat with bright eyes and an adventurous spirit that somehow never again led him near dangerous waters. "See, Mom?" Lily called to Elena, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen after finishing her shift at the children's hospital where she now worked as a registered nurse. "Mr. Reeves is talking about Ember again." Elena smiled as she joined her daughter on the couch, catching the end of the interview. The story of Keanu and Ember had faded from the headlines long ago, but its impact on their lives remained profound. The college fund Keanu had quietly established for Lily, the confidence her brief film appearance had given her, the doors that had opened for Elena's career. These were the private epilogues to a story the public had only glimpsed. "I think," Elena said softly, running her hand over Ember's soft fur, "this is what true kindness looks like. Not just the rescue itself, but everything that followed. The way he never made us feel like charity cases, but treated us like friends." "Like family," Lily corrected, with the forthright honesty of childhood. "Remember how he came to my school play even though he was super busy filming?" Elena nodded, recalling the surprise and delight on her daughter's face when she had spotted Keanu sitting quietly in the back row of the elementary school auditorium, having flown in specifically to see Lily's debut as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. What made the moment even more special was that Keanu had declined photos and autographs, explaining gently but firmly to the excited parents and teachers that this was Lily's night, not his. He had come as a friend, not a celebrity. It was this quality, the genuine humanity behind the fame, that continued to endear Keanu Reeves to millions around the world. In an industry often criticized for its superficiality, he remained refreshingly authentic, his kindness extending far beyond the high-profile rescue that had captured headlines. For Keanu himself, the connection with Lily, Elena, and Ember had become something precious, a reminder that family could be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the smallest creatures could inspire the most profound changes. As the years passed, the story of Keanu's Kitten became something of an urban legend in Seattle, embellished in some tellings, questioned as apocryphal in others. But those who had been there that rainy afternoon never forgot the sight of one of Hollywood's biggest stars, without hesitation or camera crews, diving into dangerous waters to save a tiny life that most would have considered insignificant. It was a moment that captured something essential about both the man and the city, a commitment to compassion that transcended fame, wealth, or convenience, a willingness to get wet, to take risks, to care when it would have been easier to walk away. And in a world that often seems increasingly divided and self-absorbed, this simple act of courage and kindness continued to resonate, reminding us all that heroes come in many forms, sometimes as A-list actors, sometimes as single mothers working double shifts, sometimes as brave little girls who never stop searching for lost kittens, and sometimes, just sometimes, as small orange cats with white paws and distinctive white spots on their noses, who somehow find themselves in the right place at the right time to change the course of multiple lives. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring celebrity stories. Let us know in the comments if Keanu's kindness has inspired you to help someone, or some animal, in need. Remember, sometimes the smallest acts of compassion create the most powerful ripples of change.